Mother by Veil of Maya. This is the Chicago, Illinois outfit's 7th studio album, arriving May 12th via Sumerian Records. Mother consists of 10 tracks, clocks in at around 35 minutes, and, of course, is the much anticipated follow-up to 2017's False Idol LP, an album that came out 6 years ago.
6 fucking years ago. And it hasn't been complete silence for this band because they released like 3 singles between like 2020 and 2023 that are just not on this album.
Yep.
In a minorly frustrating way. Like, I'll get over it, but in like a minorly frustrating way. If you go look at this band's like top 5 tracks on Spotify, I think the most played one, it's probably like Mikasa to be fair, but like after that, I want to say it's like Outrun, which has got like a clean, like it's got like a couple million streams on it. And it's like, God damn it. You didn't look at that and be like, yeah, this guy makes it onto the album. You know what I mean? It's like, you almost feel like you should like gauge the success of those singles and be like, best one's making the cut no matter what. Because like, you want to be able to go tell people, hey, Outrun's on the album, right?
Finally a physical release for Outrun, your favorite single we've ever done. I don't know. It's one of those things where like Outrun's got to be 2 years old minimum.
Right, yeah, no, like I get that. Like it might feel like, oh, too much time has passed, but like who's going to be upset when you put like one of the better songs on an album? It was like, you're not going to get a lot of people throwing their hands up. It's like, I can't believe the fucking Veil of Maya song I enjoy is on a record with 10 other songs. Like,
with that said,
like who are we disappointing? You know what I mean?
To get into Mother, I listened to the 10 tracks on this album and
go ahead.
Veil of Maya is the only band that can get me to say mommy. I listened to this record and it doesn't end, and I think to myself that it's missing 1, 2, 3, or 4 songs. I listened to it, and listen, I said earlier, this is a 35-minute album. This band still manages to fit in about 2 hours worth of material into those 35 minutes. This
Absolutely.
album is packed to the fucking brim with content. It's got all sorts of fucking shit happening, and I've listened to it like 3 times. I still can barely wrap my head around it. All I know is that it absolutely just is everything that I wanted. And when I say that, I come to you as a person who was disappointed by False Idol for the most part. I know that you really loved that album.
I did really enjoy False Idol. I feel like I'm learning new lore here.
So
you're a False Idol hater?
I guess the best way to just I don't dislike the album, but it's been 6 years and I probably haven't returned to that album in 3.
Okay. It wasn't a lasting album.
Wasn't a lasting album. And I think the honeymoon phase on that one came and went pretty fast. And I think that this one rights all of the wrongs I personally believed that False Idol made, which is just that, you know, it didn't have fucking 10 bangers from top to bottom. I think that every single song on here makes Mother what it is. And I don't think that same statement can be applied to False Idol, which is why I think that Mother is an absolutely incredible return to form for Veil of Maya. In my eyes, and I think a lot of it has to do with the just downright creativity within this band. They are among the most innovative bands in the scene. Like I say that without a doubt in my mind. I'll put them up there with anybody. Veil of Maya are so fucking exciting to listen to. Their songwriting is so fun.
They exist in a league all of their own. They're it's Veil of Maya. I'll couple them with Periphery. Are these bands currently within the metalcore genre that are just like, exponentially
Operating
more
at a
exciting
different level.
than so many of the other artists that surround them. And it's just because, like, okay, you were talking a little bit about the runtime of this album. Here is why this doesn't feel like 35 minutes. It's because of the overall structure of this record leaves it so unpredictable, and it goes in so many different directions that, truthfully, while each individual song does have its own personality, it does feel like one long 35-minute roller coaster ride. It is very similar in my mind to like that Periphery record we got earlier, which just feels like it shifts so constantly that it's hard not to look at it as one like long piece of music as opposed to like individual tracks. I think that Periphery, by comparison, is a bit more absurd, and I really appreciate them for that. But like alternatively, I think Veil of Maya, in being slightly more reserved than that, sort of benefit themselves in that when you do hit the expected moments in your song, I think they're stronger than they would otherwise be. Like, but so it's like like this record is experimental, but it's not really experimental. It's like you still get a lot of hooks on here. You get a lot of like you know, here's your big breakdown and stuff like that. Like it's not so experimental that it's off-putting, I think, in a way that like a Periphery album can be, right? And I compare them because they sound so intensely similar to me. Even Lucas and Spencer's vocals are incredibly similarly stylized.
So, I don't know if you pulled it too, but listening to Lucas, I heard so much of Derek from State Champs on this album.
That is such a bizarre pull. No, I can't personally say that I heard of that.
Specifically the song Disco Kill Party. Just for me, it has such a poppy chorus, and I couldn't get State Champs out of my mind. And maybe that's why, right?
I will give you that Lucas is an incredible dynamic vocalist. Like on the drop of a dime, he switches from being a deathcore frontman to a pop punk frontman just like that, right?
Easily.
I think that this band is just unpredictable, and that's what makes them exciting, right? Like I can never fully know where a song is going to go until it goes there, right? And even when I run the album back, I still don't have it figured out, right? So it makes each following listen consistently as exciting as that first time around. And I think that is sort of like, it's like the novelty of this, right? It's almost like it's defining factor, right? It's that like, because it's so like creative and because of the way it's structured and its unpredictability, you can almost keep going back and like listening to it and having the same experience all over again without feeling like it's been watered down by like, having already experienced it before. And that kind of touches on a little bit about man, I read the promo for this, and it was weirdly a letdown because they didn't really talk about this album a lot, right? They were just kind of like, hey, you know Veil of Maya from like this banger and this banger and touring with these bands and being one of the most exciting voices in metalcore. And speaking of the new album, Mark Akubo had this to say. I hope you're inspired to listen to this again and again. Maybe you'll hone in on the little details as you go further, and it will musically become a cinematic masterpiece. And that was like the only quote about the whole album. Like, that's it. Like, that's all we have to say about it.
It's almost enough.
But it's like in that, it's that like last, like that very, a cinematic experience really stood out to me because it's like such a fascinating way to describe an album. You know what I mean?
Well, granted, like this album is chock full of fucking atmosphere and intentionally cinematic parts, I guess, in a way. So like, I don't know how much of that statement is attributing itself to those decisions or if it's the overall components of this album in its entirety that we're really trying to highlight there.
I guess what's funny is that like I feel like what Mark Akubo was saying is like, hey, this is like an auditory experience. Like fucking put your headphones on and like bathe it. I know, but it's interesting that they would describe it as a cinematic experience because that feels like how I would say it when I'm not quite sure how to like phrase how I want to describe this album. But I think that it's specific for a reason, and I think that what it also touches on a little bit is that this album is like an event, and I think that like the 6 years between this and False Idol really weirdly benefit this record in a way that's like, man, I have missed this band, and man, holy shit, there are so few artists who do it like Veil of Maya, and like not only that, but Veil of Maya does it extremely well.
Yeah, I think that this album serves as an incredible reminder as to why Veil of Maya are the fucking top dog. Like, man, what a fucking...
Mark Yacoub was one of the most brilliant guitarists ever to grace the scene, period. Ever,
but, like,
period.
the whole band is so fucking dumb talented.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that obviously Mother serves a lot of purposes, but for me, it's a really just, again, it's a good reminder as to why Veil of Maya... I already had that notion in my mind, like why I thought
this reinforces
it. It's such a great reinforcement of those thoughts.
I think the standout tracks for me in particular were Artificial Dose and Red Fur, the second of which was a single. I will say that I think it ends on maybe its weakest note in Lost Creator and Death Runner. I think that the 8 tracks before it kind of outshine them. So that's where maybe it left like a slightly bitter taste in my mouth walking away from it.
Yeah, I think that they had a good opportunity to throw like that 5-minute Mother Part 4 banger at the very end and cap off the album on a real highlight. And, you know, Death Runner's fine. It doesn't really do it for me at the very end of this album. But I think that, I don't know, in a weird way, something about that song in particular inspires you to turn the rest of the album back on, like just press play, start it over. And I don't know if it's because suddenly you have the urge to listen to those iconic songs that came slightly before it.
Doesn't sully the incredible fondness I have for every track that comes before it in a way that doesn't make me want to immediately go back into it. I will say this too. It's going to sound a little weird, but this band sort of ignites a joy in me that not many artists do, where I really let myself get lost in this record. Like I really just let it take me over. It's something about Veil of Maya where they're such an exciting artist to listen to, and it really translates in a way that like I have an incredible amount of fun listening to them, and they're able to solicit that feeling out of me without needing to dull down any of their sensibilities. Like this band is as off the wall and weird and experimental as they want to be, in a way that like they never lose the part of this band that still makes it like just fun metalcore to like sort of like bang your head to. You know, it's like they never lose the plot. Like through the entirety of the record, it's like no matter how many times they pivot or like break off from like what the easy choice like for the win would be, it still manages to be gripping because like there's something that like there's just something, there's an ingredient in this formula that like it's I'm addicted to it. You know what I mean? It's like I couldn't get enough of this record.
I think that there's something to be said about its presentation. Like I think everyone really loves like the synthwave aesthetic, and the band did a really great job of leading up to this album with some cool videos that help really hammer home that vibe and that energy contained within all the songs. Like single choices were excellent for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Red Fur, you mentioned as a highlight, it really got the fucking point of this album across in a really big way. And
Mother Part 4 is also phenomenal. The singles in general were really, really good.
And I think that something that I really feel like I can't exactly put into words, but like a feeling I can't explain enough that wasn't, you know, lost on me was the hype that I felt heading into it, knowing it had been so long since I sat down with a Veil of Maya album. I think that lended itself a little bit to the overall experience. So
they rewarded your expectations.
Well,
so it's like, that's where like it could have gone one way or the other, right?
Well, part of it's like, and I guess Periphery is a similar story because it had been a minute since that record for them too. It was easy to get lost in this album and that Periphery album because it's an opportunity I don't frequently get. So it's like, well, of course I'm going to pay extra attention to this album because it's like, when's the next album I'm going to get, right? It had been a while.
I don't know if it's quite, it's like that, and it's a combination of the fact that there's just not a lot of other artists doing this very specific style of metalcore and doing it so incredibly well, like, you know, Veil of Maya. So it's just overall, it's like I can appreciate it both on an artistic level and then on a really like surface level of just being a really enjoyable album. I will say that I don't think it quite sticks the landing, and you know, I will take that into like my overall score. I don't know that I think this is necessarily, you know, you said the last album didn't quite False Idol stick for you.
Fuck False Idol, 4.5 for Mother, the brand new album from Veil of Maya.
I'll come slightly under. I'm going to go with a 4, where I really liked it, but I don't know if it entirely outshines like the last album for me. It feels like we kept like the overall like chart
I'll disagree
flat.
with that. I think this album casts a shadow so far and wide over that last record that for me it's like it's almost the Veil of Maya album at the moment.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
And, like, granted, I know that like, oh, Marcos, what about the album with fucking Mikasa? Like, nah, dog. This is
ironically, you forget there were like 7 Veil of Maya albums before Lucas even joined the band.
But like, I don't know. I think that this album is really fucking cool. I like stylistically a lot of the decisions they made. I love the aesthetic. I can't, like, part of me is just like, am I a prisoner to the aesthetic? Maybe, but I'm a damn happy one.